Let's talk about shame, because as Carl Jung said, shame is a soul eating emotion. So, this past weekend was the Easter weekend, and I went into a huge spiral. I was trying to not eat chocolate, and I landed up eating it. And I know it's such a small thing, but it's the small things that break us, apparently. Let's get into it. This past week or week and a bit was Easter, and you know, as we all know, Easter just means chocolate. And, after 40 days of Lent, most people want to let loose and eat all the good food and eat all the chocolate, etc. And I tried not to do that. Trying to lose weight, trying to focus on my health and, lower my sugar intake. And I was going to like just suffer through it and not partake in any of it. And then on, I don't know, must have been on actual Easter Sunday, I couldn't handle it, and I was really upset that I wasn't having any Easter chocolate, and I didn't want just like a normal, bar of chocolate, like a Kit Kat chocolate. I wanted like proper Easter chocolate, and that turned into a thing, and that triggered me for whatever reason, and it turned into a shame spiral. So we're going to talk about it. So, I want to preface this by saying that I am not a therapist. I have got a consciousness coaching certificate, but obviously that's not the same. This is just one individual who's trying to live their life a little bit more intentionally, and there's a lot that goes with that. So, I just wanted to unpack that feeling. And if you can hear the outside noise, I'm so sorry. I live on the main road. Um, but let's start with what shame is, right? So, number one, how it manifests. So, for me, it manifests in huge, tumultuous um, shame spiraling, right? Where I can actually feel my body like cringe away from itself, like my being wants to like hide away from itself. It's a very visceral reaction, and it manifests in self sabotage for me. I tend to, once I realize what it is, then I sort of be like, well, I've already done it, so might as well just make it 10 times worse, and then we'll, just deal with it later. And I think that that's a very normal reaction for many people. And so the trigger to, that first bit of shame to, be like, well, fuck it, and let's just go balls deep, and then it creates that shame spiral, right? Until you eventually reach like rock bottom. And I'm trying to prevent that rock bottom, because rock bottom is like 5 kilos later heavier than I started, right? And that's not the goal. Now, obviously, I'm talking about food, because food is a huge trigger for me as an emotional eater, and someone that's not trying to diet but is trying to consciously lose weight. Um, it's a weird space to be in, but people feel shame about lots of things. I'm not going to pretend like I know what other people feel shame over. So, if there is anything that triggers you, just let me know in the comments. Some people can't give up cigarettes. Some people, it could be drinking. It could be, I don't know. It could be anything. I don't know. My thing is eating. So that's where it goes. But the next thing I want to talk about is that we need to focus on that guilt and shame are not the same thing, because they do overlap. So with guilt, it's an acknowledgement that you did something wrong. Sometimes you're very neutral about it and you're like, yeah, fucked up, and then continue with life. But that's more acknowledgement. Guilt is like, oh, I know I messed up and I know that I need to fix this, but you don't connect it with your self-worth, right? It's more like an action. You feel remorse for that action. You want forgiveness for that action. And then you try and better yourself, right? Shame is a lot deeper. It's a lot more ugly. Um, there's a lot of self sabotage and feeling of self hatred, and a lot of feeling of unworthiness. And I mean, for example, I know some people feel shame about not having like tertiary education, like going to university. It's such a thing now that everybody in the world goes to university. Some people that don't, and it's a weird thing to bring up. Like, there's that, I don't know. It's like a knee jerk, like visceral body reaction, and that shame, like there's nothing to forgive, there's nothing for you to feel remorse over. Yes, maybe it's something that you didn't want to do, or something that you feel bad about, but it's ingrained then with our self-worth, and that is where that shame spiral, because it starts attacking who you are as a person, as you go down and you go down and you go down, and you're like, I don't deserve this, and I'm a piece of shit, and I'm just the worst, and it just goes on and on and on, right? So we have to realize and differentiate first that guilt and shame are not the same. So because shame creates such a negative bias on our perception of ourselves, right? We don't really think of ourselves then as like a good person or someone that's worthy of this or that we deserve this. It becomes very negative, right? It does create a shame spiral. And so, what is a shame spiral, and do you experience it, or maybe you don't? Um, People that go into shame spirals, again, not a psychologist, it's not like I've done a lot of research. This is just my own experience and what I've researched and seen for myself that resonates with me. But do your own homework. The only way to understand ourselves better and try to better ourselves individually is to do, our own research and look at our own triggers. And that's one of the things is, right. What have I written here? Oh, it is a chain reaction. What did I say? It's a chain reaction from a trigger to total emotional shutdown. So what happens is that something triggers us. For me, it was starting with the Easter chocolate, and I couldn't have one. Like, I binged um, a lot of chocolate over a period of like 12 hours, right? And then it creates this chain reaction of like, well, I did it yesterday and it's still Easter. And I sort of like validate myself, even though I know it's wrong. So I validate myself in allowing myself to do it again, and then that makes me feel worse, and then I'm like, yeah, well, we'll just start fixing it tomorrow, and then it just goes worse. I'm like, actually, you can't even keep your own word, and that it does this all the way down to total emotional shutdown. And that total shutdown could be spending a day in bed, it could be not talking to anyone, it could be isolating yourself, it could be binge watching Netflix so that you don't have to think about your own thoughts, or whatever, right? Everyone's shutdown looks different. So the point now is that we want to realize what these are. So what does my trigger look like? One of my triggers. What is the self-talk that goes down the barrel of the spiral? And what does my emotional shutdown look like? How does it manifest, right? So from there, we want to try and stop so that we don't go all the way down to the bottom of the barrel, because that is a difficult place to come back up, right? So, and sometimes it could be a quick process and sometimes it could be a long process. So I know, for example, people who have problems with alcohol, their spiral can happen in the space of 48 hours, right? From that first drink to a total blackout, Monday morning, what did I do? How did I get here? It's different for everyone, right? So, how do we break the cycle, or at least try to? So, how do we not go all the way down? How do we like, whoop, let's back ourselves back up and continue going in the direction that we want to do, right? And the direction that we want to go, sorry. So, number one is name it, okay? You can't just say, well, I feel like shit, or, I had a bad day, or, I wasn't feeling myself. That is, a great place to start, but we need to take it one step further. So, for example, let's use myself for example. Let me assist you with this for a bit. Okay. Sometimes it's difficult to get into words if you're not in the practice of doing this, especially when you're just doing it with yourself and not with a therapist. And sometimes people need a therapist to be able to do that back and forth. But not everyone can afford a therapist, and sometimes it's difficult to find a therapist. So self-work, always important. Name it. For me, it started with I isolated myself, thinking I was protecting myself from my triggers, and that led to not participating at all, and then feeling upset with myself and upset with the world that I couldn't participate in this like cultural thing of eating Easter eggs. It's so stupid, right? But it's sort of, it happens often. It happens at Christmas, it happens at my birthday, it happens all the time, where I'm like, no, I don't I can't have this because I'm an all or nothing person. So let's just avoid it. And then what happens when you avoid it, if you're an all or nothing person, is that I had nothing and now I want all, right? So that was where it started. So the naming was of me feeling upset because of this, right? So, what triggered it? The trigger was, like I said, all or nothing personality. I wanted to withhold myself, trying to protect myself from myself, but it backfired as it usually does, and I never see it. I can see it in retrospect, in hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. But in now, looking at myself, like, really, you do this every time, right? And social media doesn't help. Social media was like everyone like sharing what they're doing for Christmas or what they're doing for Easter or whatever the thing is. And I'm like, why can't I do that? Why can't I have that? Right? So for me, that's where it starts. Next is writing to myself from my higher self. Now, I did look online, and some of the advice was, um, you know, speak kinder to yourself. I can't do that because if I speak kinder to myself, I let myself off the hook, which is also connected to shame. Like I feel like I deserve the punishment. It's so nuanced, right? But if I only speak kindly to myself, then I know I'm going to let myself off the hook and be like, there, Relia, I understand. It's okay. It's not okay. I mean, it is okay, but it's not okay because I'm really trying to fix this part of myself. And that's something that happens again and again. So I can't do that. What I need is a message, a personal message that I will understand and someone that gets me, because when you write from your higher self, it's your best version, the most connected, wisest, most knowledgeable, best version of who you could ever be. And I stream conscious writing to myself with that. And I find that I keep myself in check and I give myself the hard truths, but I also find that I forgive myself along the way, right? And forgiveness is a big part of that, because if you don't forgive yourself, then you are still feeling that shame because you feel like you deserve the punishment. So multi layered. Um, Another thing that people do, and I do a lot, is journal prompting. I find a journal prompt. Either I create one for myself or I find one on the internet, usually on Pinterest. Pinterest is a fantastic place to share those kinds of things. And yeah, that's where it starts. So I'll put it in the at the end of the video, but let me just write the journal prompt that I started with. Um, it says, well, there are a couple, right? So it's a process for you to work through it. Number one, what comes to mind when I hear the word shame? Number two, what triggers am I aware of? Number three, how does it manifest itself? As in, what happens when I feel the shame? When I start seeing the pattern, what is the pattern? How was it manifesting? Number four, what can I do to let go of some of that shame? Right. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about. But let me just leave it there for now. Right. What can I do to let go of some of that shame? And the final one, which is being kind to yourself without letting yourself off the hook. If my friend were going through the same thing, what advice would I give? So, letting go of some of that shame, because that's how we break the cycle, right? Is you can forgive and not forget, but you need to let go, because if you don't let go, you hold on to it, and then it's inevitably going to happen again, right? So I think for me, letting go, specifically with my eating, is that I need to acknowledge that I love food and I love eating chocolate and I love sugar, but I love myself as well, and I love eating healthy and I love being healthy, and I need to acknowledge that I can love both things. There is a huge love-hate relationship, I think, when it comes to shame, because we do the things that we do because we enjoy it, right? There's a comfort in whatever the thing that we're participating in. But in the same sorry, a little bit of Spanish came out there. Um, we need to acknowledge that um, you are going to mess up again. You are going to fuck up again, and there's nothing. Obviously, I'm not going to say there's nothing we can do, because if that's the mindset, then we're going to just be like, well, there's no point in trying, and then like just do it anyway. No, for me, it's I give myself a pep talk and be like, right, just stop where you are, right? Enjoy this last chocolate, for example, and start again. Start again, pick yourself up, and do what you need to do to get back on that horse, right? You fell off the horse, get back on that horse. You will fall off the horse again, but you're just going to get back on. And I think that's where it is that you can't stop trying, and you can't stop forgiving yourself, um, even though that forgiveness is hard, right? So this is the last thing that I wrote in the notes, right? It says, when it happens again, because it will, hopefully you'll be able to recognize it sooner and have some tools to help yourself. And then I put a little heart because I need to be my own support system, right? Okay, so let's just break down what we've chatted about. Number one, how does my shame manifest? Two, what is the difference between guilt and shame? Because, sometimes they're the same and sometimes they're different. Three, what is a shame spiral? Four, how do I break it, or at least try to? And then I guess, oh, yeah. So this is the final thing. I actually didn't put it. So this video is a little bit all over the place. The final thing I put here as part of breaking the cycle is create a game plan, right? A plan to ease yourself out of it.